Hello and welcome to the Frontington and Backwoods Railway. Today I'm a signalman. One of the challenges when creating a model railway that isn't based on a real-life location is that you need to figure everything out for yourself. There is no book about what Frontington was like. No grainy black and white photos on the internet of someone's grandfather standing on the platform. So, to make it feel realistic, I'm having to take inspiration from other real-world locations and practices, and asking around to make sure that what I'm doing is plausible. So today I'm going to take you through some of the operational side of the layout, explaining how it would look from the perspective of the chap in the signal box, dealing with points and signals. And to understand that, I've drawn up a signal box diagram. It's been through a few iterations, and massive thanks to everyone on Facebook who's helped me get it to this point. A couple of things to note before we get into the details. You'll notice that the main line is depicted here as a straight track. That's not quite how the layout is built, but we're using our imaginations here. Backwoods wouldn't really be on the other side of a small embankment. It would be a few miles further down the line, and it wouldn't be on the signal box diagram. The other thing to clarify is that the point at the far end of the platform hasn't been forgotten. The loco crew would change that point manually themselves. It wouldn't be controlled by the signalman. That's how real-life stations worked, at least in some of the examples I've seen. And that's convenient for me, because it means I don't need to get point rodding all the way over there. Right, let's get back up to the other end of the platform, because that's where all the juicy details are. In the up direction, we've got a starter signal for each platform, plus an advanced starter signal to denote the end of the section managed by this signal box. In the down direction, there's a home signal, and two inner home signals on a bracket to direct incoming trains to either of the platforms. There would also be a distant signal further up the line, but fixed at caution because this is the terminus. We've also got some ground signals to protect and control shunting movements out of the sidings and the runaround loop. On the lever frame, those ground signals will be placed next to their relevant point lever. Speaking of which, let's talk about points. And the first thing I want to mention is that some of the points would be operated by the same lever, which is why these two physical points are both marked 14. Logically, they operate as one, because there shouldn't be any situation where you would want one set and the other not. I think you'd refer to the physical point nearest the signal box as the A end, and the furthest one as the B end. And you'll see the same kind of logic applied in a couple of other places, but this time operating catch points. Now, a catch point is a safety mechanism to stop unauthorised movements from colliding with other trains. For example, if a wagon's brakes weren't put on properly and it started rolling out of the goods siding, the catch point would derail it before it got to the junction with the platform 1 track at point 6. We would only want that catch point to allow movement if point 6 was also set in that direction, so those would move together. The same is true for the runaround loop, where point 9 and its catch point operate together. And again, this is following convention that I've seen on the real Great Western network. The catch point on the engine shed line is slightly different though. That's got its own dedicated point lever. Lucky thing. And the reason for that is that the B end of point 14 is actually serving as a catch point of sorts for the platform 1 track, since there isn't room for its own catch point before it gets to point 6. The B end of point 14, in its normal position, would lead into the engine shed siding, and so protects the main line from a runaway carriage coming out to platform 1. In the opposite direction, the engine shed siding therefore needs its own catch point to prevent locos rolling out of the shed and into platform 1. Then there's the facing point locks. This is another safety feature, preventing the points from switching while a train is going over them. Technically, I think the facing point locks only need to be locked if a train is going over that point in a facing direction. Since this is a terminus and all the points are bidirectional, the normal position, which is when the lever is pushed back in the frame, would leave the facing point lock unlocked. There are other ways of setting up these locks, but this is how I'm interpreting it for my layout at least. The diagram on its own feels a little incomplete though, so here's what the levers would look like. Now, in my day job, I'm a web developer, so I knocked up this web-based interactive simulator for the signal box lever frame. I'm trying to follow the conventions of real signal boxes, so the main signals are on the outside of the frame, and points are in the middle, arranged from left to right as you get to them. Signals are red, points are black, and facing point locks are blue. And if you want to have a go with this yourself, there's a link in the description. One final detail to note on the lever labels is the little numbers at the bottom. Those represent the interlocking mechanism that would be in place to prevent impossible combinations from causing rifts in the space-time continuum, which was a common cause of delays in the 30s. Let's take an example. If we wanted to pull lever 1 for the platform 1 starter signal, the lever tells us that it should be unlocked by levers 11 and 14 being pulled forwards, and 6 and 12 both being put back in their normal position. If any of those levers is not set in the correct position, there would be a mechanism in the lever frame that would prevent lever 1 from physically being moved. Lever 14 also has its own interlocking, preventing it from being changed if its facing point lock is locked. Since lever 1 is a movement in the up direction, we don't care about the facing point locks 7 and 15, because in this direction the points are trailing. And pulling lever 1 then locks more levers in place for that route, so that they can't be changed while the train is departing. Now, I appreciate that's a lot of detail. If you're feeling overwhelmed, don't worry, there'll be a demonstration in a moment. It's also worth noting that not all of this is going to be actually modelled in functioning form. I'll have dummy catch points, for example, just using a small piece of track permanently fixed to the side of the rail to give an impression of there being a catch point. And the ground signals will be fixed at danger too, because they're far too small and fiddly for me to consider motorising them. But the points will be operated by servos under the board, and yes, my plan is to use one switch for both of the 14 points. I'll actually also have servos and switches for the points at the other end of the layout, at the far end of the platform and in the fiddle yard. And the signals will hopefully be motorised too. Budget permitting, I'll be using those lovely dapole signals, as not only are they motorised, but they also have a little light in them, which will look awesome. Right, that's enough theory. Let's play trains. So here we are at Frontington Signal Box. You'll have to imagine the signals for now, of course. All the levers are at normal, so everything should be safe and nothing should be moving. We've just received notification from the box up the line that there's a train approaching. It's a passenger train, which we'll want to bring into platform 2. And we can see on the diagram that we need to check the positions of points 9 and 14. But since all our levers are currently set to normal, we won't need to change these. But we will need to lock them in place with 10 and 15. So now we can clear signals 16 and 18. As the train passes those signals, we can put them back on. and we can unlock 15 and 10 too. The loco is pulled forwards, the crew changes the point and resets it when they're done. The loco can come up as far as the end of the loop, where it's held by the ground signal. We've checked that there's nothing else on the line, so we can set point 9 to its reverse position, along with its catch point. And then we can pull off ground signal 8 to allow the loco to proceed, putting it back on again once it's passed. Now, you might think that the loco only needs to pass point 9 before stopping and returning into the platform, but actually it needs to come right up to the signal, so that we can tell it when the route is set. We can also have a friendly chat with the driver and fireman, seeing as they're right there. But not for too long, because the fireman tells us that they actually need to take on water, which is on the engine shed siding. So let's set point 14, lock 15, lock 7, and clear signal 17. The loco can now proceed across the points and into platform 1. And while it's doing that, we'll put signal 17 back on, and we'll also reset point 9 to normal. We can see from the signal box that the loco is in the platform, so let's unlock 15, set 14 back to normal, lock 11, set catch point 12 to reversed, unlock 7 because we don't need it anymore, and pull off signal 4 to tell the loco it's going to go into the engine shed siding. It'll be there for a bit, so let's put signal 4 back on, unlock 11, and set catch point 12 back to normal. We've just heard that the next train is on its approach, and we know from the timetable that it's a tank engine with an auto coach. And we'll be putting that into platform 1, seeing as platform 2 is already busy. So we'll reverse 14, lock 15, double check that 6 is still at normal, lock 7, and then clear signals 17 and 18. As always, we'll put signals 18 and 17 back on as the train passes them. And once the train is safely in the station, we'll unlock 15, set 14 to normal, and unlock 7. Nothing is moving anywhere now, so all the levers should be pushed back at this point. That loco has had a nice long drink, so let's get it reunited with its train. Since platform 1 is full of the auto coach, we'll have to direct it into the goods siding. So we'll set point 6 and its catch point. We'll lock 7, we'll reverse catch point 12, And finally pull off ground signal 13 so that the loco can proceed, resetting 13 as it passes. Now let's put catch point 12 back to normal again, set 14, unlock 7, lock 11, and pull off ground signal 5. This will bring the loco back up to the signal box, where we might be able to finish our conversation that we started earlier. We'll keep it brief though, because the train is nearly ready to depart. So let's put ground signal 5 back on, reset point 6 and its catch point to normal, unlock 11, reset 14 to normal, lock 15, lock 10, and pull off signal 16, putting it back on again once the loco has moved forward. The train is coupled up and ready to depart. We've checked with the signal box up the line and they're ready to receive our train. So we'll double check points 9 and 14 are at normal, which they are. The point locks 10 and 15 can be unlocked, and then pull off signals 3 and 2. The guard raises his green flag and blows his whistle, the loco whistles joyfully in return, and the train departs, with us putting signals 2 and 3 back on as it passes them. A little later, that auto coach train is ready to depart too. And we've had confirmation from the other signal box that the line is clear, so we'll set 14, confirm that 6 is at normal, which it is, lock 11, and finally clear signals 3 and 1. And with a few more whistles and toots, the train departs. Put the signals back on, unlock 11, reset 14 to normal, and make a cup of tea. All being well, all our levers should be comfortably reclining in the normal position, meaning all the points are safe and all the signals are at stop, meaning nothing should be going anywhere. I hope you found that useful. I'm not going to declare that this is all 100% accurate because I'm bound to have forgotten something. And you absolutely don't need to go into this much detail if you don't want to. Sometimes it's fun to just set a train going at full speed and watch it pootle around, without worrying about rules and regulations. But I also find it satisfying to be able to play signalman if I want to. If you have any feedback, let me know in the comments. I'll be laying some point rodding soon, now that I know where the catch points are, so watch out for a future video on that. There are also details in the description of how you can support me, and don't forget you can have a play with this simulator yourself by clicking the link in the description. That's all for this video though. Bye for now.